3 months had passed since the night I gave my life to Jesus Christ. 3 months since everything shifted. Yet my story did not resemble those of many converts who lost everything overnight. My reality was far more complex. I was still the president of Burkina Faso. Still the military leader who had come to power with a mission to free my people from neo-colonial control and corruption. Still carrying responsibility for millions of lives. My decision to follow Christ had remained private, known only to a small group of trusted advisors and close friends. I continued governing, directing military operations against terrorist groups, negotiating with foreign powers, all while quietly wrestling with a faith that had transformed how I understood life, leadership, and purpose. Keeping my conversion quiet was not about shame or fear, at least not how I explained it to myself. I told myself it was about wisdom and timing. Burkina Faso was largely Muslim, with Christians forming much of the remaining population and traditional African religions still influential. As a leader who rose promising unity and sovereignty, I understood that publicly declaring Christianity could be exploited by my enemies, create divisions I could not afford, and destabilize fragile coalitions. My advisor spoke plainly. Your personal beliefs are one thing, but as president, you represent everyone. A dramatic public conversion could undo everything. I had grown up in a culturally Muslim household, though religion was never deeply enforced. Like many in West Africa, faith was more tradition than devotion. I prayed occasionally, fasted during Ramadan when possible, and respected Islamic customs, but I never claimed to be devout or portrayed myself as a religious authority. Still, assumptions followed me. A man named Ibrahim Traoré was presumed Muslim. My encounter with Christ came unexpectedly during a moment of crisis. After a devastating terrorist attack that killed dozens of civilians, including women and children, I found myself alone late at night in my office, crushed by the weight of leadership. I cried out to God, not defining which God, demanding answers about evil, suffering, and my inability to protect my people. In that raw moment, Jesus revealed himself to me. Not through a physical vision, but through a spiritual encounter so real and overwhelming that doubt vanished. I knew he was the Son of God, the Savior of the world, my Savior. That night, alone in my office, I surrendered my life. I spoke simple words that changed everything. I asked Jesus to take my life, declared my belief, and yielded myself fully. The peace that followed was unlike anything I had known. The burden of leadership did not disappear, but I no longer carried it alone. In the months that followed, I struggled with what this conversion meant in practice. I read the Bible obsessively late into the night. I met quietly with a Christian pastor who became my mentor. I prayed constantly, especially before major decisions. My faith was genuine and growing, yet hidden. Only a few knew. The subject of baptism kept returning. My pastor explained its meaning, the public declaration, obedience to Christ's command. Each conversation filled me with anxiety. Baptism was public by nature. For a president, it would be seismic. I kept postponing it, pointing to military operations, elections, regional negotiations. My pastor listened patiently, reminding me that obedience rarely waits for convenience. I knew he was right, but responsibility for a nation made obedience terrifying. I delayed, calling it wisdom, while ignoring the quiet voice whispering that it was fear. Then came the dream. It was an ordinary Tuesday. I had spent the day in security briefings, budget meetings, and a tense call with a French diplomat unhappy with our growing independence. Exhausted, I went to bed in my private quarters. Sleep came quickly. Suddenly I was no longer there. I stood beside a river. This was unlike any dream I had known. Everything felt more real than waking life. Sunlight warmed my skin. Water flowed gently over stones. The air smelled clean and fresh. I stood barefoot on grass and smooth pebbles. I wore simple white clothing instead of military attire. The river was clear, bordered by lush vegetation. The land felt unfamiliar, possibly Middle Eastern. I heard footsteps. A man approached along the riverbank. Even from a distance, his presence commanded attention. As he came closer, my heart raced. He wore a white robe. His features were Middle Eastern. But it was his eyes. They held love, wisdom, power, and compassion beyond description. I knew who he was and fell to my knees, whispering his name. He smiled, a warmth unlike anything I had experienced, and told me to stand. He said he had come to speak with me as a friend. As I rose, every title I carried dissolved. I was no longer president or commander. I was simply Ibrahim, standing before my Savior. He invited me to walk with him. He spoke of what I had been avoiding. I admitted it was baptism. He agreed, but asked a deeper question. Who do you think you are? I named my roles. President. Military leader. Revolutionary. He told me those were positions, not identity. I spoke of my people, my ideals, my mission. He said those were good, but still not who I was to him. Finally, I answered that I was his child, someone he had saved. He affirmed this as my true identity. Everything else was secondary. He placed his hands on my shoulders and explained that my rise to leadership was not accidental. He had purpose for Burkina Faso and chose me for it. But I could only fulfill that purpose by leading from my identity as his son, not from political titles alone. He told me I was compartmentalizing my faith, keeping it private while maintaining neutrality publicly. He said he wanted all of me, including my public leadership. I protested that public faith would create division, that enemies would exploit it. He asked whether my fear was preventing me from accomplishing what he truly intended. As we walked, he described how he saw my leadership. He acknowledged my courage and love for my people, but said I was trying to accomplish divine purposes with human strength alone. Political unity, he explained, was fragile. The unity he offered transcended politics, ethnicity, and religion. I asked how I could lead people to that unity when many did not share my faith. He asked whether I trusted his wisdom in leadership. I admitted I did. Then he asked why I did not trust him with the consequences of openly following him. He said I wanted private benefits without public cost. That discipleship did not work that way. I insisted I was trying to be responsible. He told me my assumption was wrong. Public faith would not harm my leadership, but complete it. He explained that hiding my faith taught others that belief should be concealed. As a visible leader, my silence carried weight. He reminded me that spiritual authority could not be fully exercised while remaining hidden. He asked me to be baptized publicly. I listed the consequences. He acknowledged them all. He compared it to my stand against neocolonialism. I had accepted risk for political freedom. Did I lack courage for spiritual truth? I feared failing my people more than death. He reassured me. He was not asking for theocracy or favoritism, only honesty. Baptism, he explained, was the ancient public declaration of faith. We reached a calm pool in the river. He stepped into the water and invited me to follow. I entered. He guided me under the water. In that moment, the burdens, fear, and anxiety washed away. When I emerged, I felt free, alive, renewed. He told me this was what he wanted publicly. Not for salvation, but for freedom and authenticity. I agreed to obey. He embraced me and promised to walk with me through every consequence. When I awoke, it was just after 4 in the morning. The dream felt more real than memory. I knew it was not ordinary. I prayed, committing to public baptism. Later that day, I met my pastor and told him everything. He confirmed what I already knew. The cost would be real. In the weeks that followed, we planned carefully. We chose a path that was public but not provocative. A Sunday church service in Ouagadougou. Not secret, not spectacle. The night before, I barely slept. I thought of my family, my allies, the Muslim community, the region. Then I remembered the river, the words, the peace. The next morning, I arrived at the church in white clothing. The service was simple and sincere. When my pastor called me forward, my heart pounded. I answered the questions of faith. I stepped into the water. As I went under, the old life faded. When I rose, the congregation erupted in joy. I stood there free, authentic, unashamed. President, soldier, servant of Christ. The news spread quickly. Reactions were mixed, as expected. I addressed the nation, making clear my faith was personal, not political. I affirmed equal governance for all. Over time, something unexpected happened. Many respected the honesty. Young people found courage. Leading from my true identity made me a better leader. Challenges remain. But I remember the promise. He has been with me, guiding, sustaining, and reminding me that obedience was the right choice.